Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for joining me for another video. I'm really excited about this week's topic because you know what? The new year is almost here and there's so many things that we're thinking about, from like the year of 2020 that we have just gone through to the typical things that we like to kind of think about when a year is ending and this fresh new year is starting. And one of the things that I really want to focus on in this video is letting go of resentment, like really letting go of the anger, of the resentment that you might be carrying around with you, and really how to do this and why this is so beneficial for you. So before I get into this week's video, if you have not subscribed to this channel, don't forget to click on the subscribe button down below and click on post notifications. I make content every week ranging from a ton of different topics, from emotional abuse, narcissistic abuse, learning how to love yourself. I mean, this is free coaching. This is mental health 101. Honestly, really learning just how to love yourself and be emotionally and mentally healthy at the end of the day. So let's dive right into this topic, because this is a great topic to get into, because I know a lot of people really struggle with this. Now, if you are a human being, then chances are at some point in your life, you have been faced with the feeling of disappointment where someone has really let you down. Now, the disappointment that you have felt could be a little disappointment, or it could be something that is really severe that you're kind of carrying around with you. This feeling is really sadness. This feeling is obviously the disappointment, like I said, because you didn't think things were going to be the way they are. Someone wasn't going to be who they now are showing you that they want to be or are. And so learning how to handle your anger, your resentment in a healthy way is so important. It's just like being able to manage and handle your fears, your self-talk, being able to motivate yourself, being able to not procrastinate. Like, everything really has to do with this little gadget right here. And so learning how to manage this in your life so you can have a great life, and not just managing it to kind of like push it aside, because that's not what I'm all about on this channel. We're not pushing anything under the rug, but like learning how do I actually do this stuff like in a healthy way. Now, one of the first things I'm going to say, and I know there's a lot of people, it's probably not going to like this, but this is the reality. Your resentment is yours. It's not anyone else's. I don't care what someone has done to you. And before I even go in any further, let's just say I have felt resentment, I have felt anger, I have felt disappointment. None of what I'm saying is something that you can just snap your fingers and be like, okay, here we go, I'm gonna do with this. This is a practice that you have to start practicing and implementing. The more you do it, it will get easier and easier. But step number one is you have to acknowledge that any feelings that you feel, anger, frustration, resentment, sadness, etc., is your feelings. You are having these feelings regardless of what someone else does to you. And the reason why I kind of start off with that is because that is the self-empowerment place. Like, that is the place that you want to be, because now you have control over where I go, and you're not letting outside factors like have a control over your life and your happiness. You are choosing to either stay here, or you're choosing to learn how to begin to like move through this experience. Now, when we feel a disappointment, either an abandonment, a betrayal, etc., obviously our ego is going to be bruised, and obviously our wounded self is going to be affected, and it's going to feel hurt. Just to make things really simple, let's just say that there are two sides to ourselves, right? We have this logical side and we have this emotional side. So our emotional side is usually where that inner child lives. It's usually where ego lives. So it's the part of you that is very reactive. It's the part of you that like takes offense, that like thinks I'm not enough, like all of those things. So inner child, ego, we'll kind of put that all on one side. Our logical self is the parent in us. It's the soul, it's the intuition, it's the one that knows right and wrong. It's logical, right? So when we're in these feelings of real anger and resentment, what happens is we're just very much in that emotional state, and we're not really tapping into that logical state enough. And the reason why it's important to balance the two is because obviously if you're on one side more than the other, then that's not healthy. Where it's healthy is being able to balance both, because both need validation, both need to be heard and felt and dealt with, and then begin coasting and moving through them. So we're not staying stuck in one place. If we're stuck in resentment, then we're stuck in a victim mentality. We're stuck in allowing someone or something to have control over us. We're stuck in letting that kind of inner child or that ego take over. So if I'm stuck in a feeling of anger and resentment, then I'm very much on this left side. I'm very much stuck in the ego. I'm stuck in the wounded child. Usually the ego is very angry, and usually the wounded child is very sad. So both need validation. Okay, I see you, anger. I get it. I would be angry too. That's a valid thing, right? In order to really move through this, you have to be able to validate every single feeling that you have. You feel angry by what happened to you, that's healthy, right? And so most of us can do that very, very easily. But then we got to go to the next step. We got to be able to go to that inner child and say, okay, you feel sad. That's really the core feeling of what you're feeling. The ego is just kind of like the representative that was right in front of that child and going, I'm mad at you. But once that goes away, what you really feel is the sadness. You feel the disappointment. You feel the letdown, and that's where the real emotional pain kind of comes from. The anger, if you stay in anger and you can't ever get to the sadness, then you're never gonna heal. Now, being able to kind of sit in that sadness, then it's like, okay, so I'm sitting in the sadness of disappointment, now what do I do? At that point, think of a child and then think of that logical side, that parent, that best friend, that coach. What would that side do? That side would obviously help you through what it is you're feeling. So if my best friend is feeling absolutely devastated by something that's happened to her and she's sad, I'm not going to sit near her and cry with her throughout this whole conversation. I'm going to be a little logical. I'm going to be, of course, loving and empathetic and all of those other things to gently guide her out of that space, but I'm going to help her by remembering what is the reality. I'm going to rationalize this situation for her because she's becoming too emotional and she's going down a rabbit hole, versus pulling her out a little bit and having her see everything for kind of what it is. When I started really learning how to do this for myself, this was an absolute game changer, because number one, if I take responsibility for how I feel, then I get to choose. Do I want to stay down the rabbit hole? Do I want to stay in this space? Do I want to stay with resentment? Or do I want to choose to move on and be happy? That right there has to be the first thing that you do. You have to choose whether or not you want to stay in a space. It doesn't mean that we're invalidating what you went through. That doesn't mean that you're invalidating that you're still upset at times, that you're still angry at times. And this is why I said this is a process, especially if whoever you have resentment towards, you have to see and deal with on some level. So when you're talking about co-parenting with someone who's narcissistic, when you're talking about dealing with an ex on any level, when you're talking about anyone that's in your life, a parent, a cousin, or whoever, that I'm going to have to see at some point in time. They're going to bring everything up. They're going to bring all this to the surface again. And this is another opportunity for you to practice this stuff. The more you begin practicing it, it gets easier and easier. It's not something that you'll always have to be practicing letting go and resentment and all that stuff. It'll just start to fade away. But when you don't choose which direction you want to go in, then you're constantly just at a crossroads and you're stuck. And that's why people stay stuck for years, because they don't do these simple things of saying, I'm choosing to move on. I'm choosing to focus on, okay, what is coming out of this that is a bit of a positive, right? Quite frankly, the positive is if you're resentful towards someone, maybe they're not in your life anymore, maybe they abandoned you, maybe they lied to you, whatever. Number one, maybe they're not in your life at all anymore. And that's a good thing, because if someone's not right for you and someone's not healthy to be in your life, they shouldn't be in your life. Number two, you learned something from this situation. There you go, golden nugget right there. So I think it's really important to learn, and this is what I talk about all the time on this channel. I talk about it with my private clients, programs all day long, is being able to have that inner conversation where you can move through things. You can get yourself out of a space, because so often we sit in resentment really because we're on autopilot. We're not consciously thinking, and we're not consciously choosing what do we want to feel, what do we want to believe, do we want to stay stuck here? All of those things are choices. And so when you love yourself and you don't want to just sit in mucky water forever, you want to move on, then when the sadness comes up, when the anger comes up, you're going to deal with that right front and center. You're not going to feed it. You're not going to suppress it. You're going to want to deal with it so you can continue to heal and move on. So I hope that has helped you in any way, shape, or form understand resentment a little bit better, understand the process of letting go. I think you really, really have to put your own happiness first. It doesn't mean, and I know we've heard these kind of things time and time again, but it doesn't mean that someone gets a pass. It just means that you're choosing to move on. You're choosing to not let this take over forever, right? So I think it's just about making those choices of wanting to move on and not staying stuck, because believe me, it's easy to stay stuck. You could stay bitter and angry all day long, but the only person that really suffers is you. No one else does. So learning this is so, so important. It's so, so powerful. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. I always link everything, programs, coaching, everything down below. I believe I am still doing 50% off my online course right now. So you can click that link below and use the discount code if you are interested in coaching with me. And I will see you next week.